John Carter shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The chair, designed for a species with 3 sets of limbs and an exoskeleton, felt awkward under his human frame. Around him, the Galactic Council chamber stretched upward in a dome of shimmering metals and strange crystalline materials. Representatives from 17 alien species sat in tiered rows, all eyes focused on him. The first human ambassador to the stars. Ambassador Carter, spoke the council leader, a tall, willowy being with skin like polished silver. We have reviewed Earth's petition to join the Galactic Council. We find your species meets most of our requirements for membership. John straightened his back. 6 years of negotiations had led to this moment. Humanity needed this alliance. Earth was overcrowded. Resources were scarce, and the technological benefits of joining the Council would solve many of humanity's problems. However, the Council leader continued, voice echoing through the chamber. There is one condition that is non-negotiable. John's stomach tightened. He had been warned there might be unexpected demands. Humans may not bring firearms into space, ever, no exceptions. The translation came through his earpiece, but John was sure he had misheard. Firearms? You mean weapons in general? No, specifically firearms. Weapons that use explosive chemical reactions to propel solid projectiles. The council leader's many-faceted eyes blinked slowly. We have studied your species extensively. Your history is concerning. No other council species developed such weapons to the extent that humans have. The risks they pose in space environments are unacceptable. John tried to hide his surprise. Of all the possible conditions, this seemed strange yet specific. May I ask why? Many species have weapons that are far more destructive than our firearms. A different council member rose, this one with green scales and a voice like grinding stones. Energy weapons, gravity manipulators, even biological agents. All these can be controlled, contained, and regulated in space. A single projectile, from a human firearm, traveling at high velocity through space, could puncture a habitat or ship hull years after being fired. The danger is disproportionate to its primitive design. John nodded slowly. He could understand their logic even if he didn't agree with it. And what about our colonial security? There are dangers in unexplored space. You may develop and use any other form of defense technology, just not firearms, said the council leader. This is our only requirement. Do humans accept these terms? John knew he didn't have the authority to make such a decision alone. I must consult with my government. How long do we have to consider? 3 Earth months, replied the council leader. We await your answer. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. During that time, John prepared his report, trying to anticipate the reaction it would cause. He wasn't wrong. The meeting room at United Earth headquarters in Geneva erupted into chaos as soon as John finished speaking. Absolutely not. General Patricia Lewis slammed her fist on the table. As head of the Space Force, she took the proposed ban as a personal insult. They're deliberately trying to weaken us. Firearms are the foundation of our defense strategy. I disagree, said Dr. Howard Kim, the Secretary of Science. This could be an opportunity. The Council is offering us FTL travel technology, medical, advancements beyond our dreams, and access to hundreds of habitable worlds. All for giving up one type of weapon? It seems like a fair trade. President Ellen Ward raised her hand for silence. The room gradually quieted. Ambassador Carter, in your opinion, is this ban meant to handicap us, or is it a genuine safety concern? John considered the question carefully. I believe their concern is genuine. Several council species have evolved beyond the need for weapons entirely. Others use defense systems so advanced they make our firearms look like slingshots. This isn't about keeping us weak. It's about their genuine fear of unpredictable projectiles in space environments. The debate continued for weeks. Military leaders protested. Scientists and diplomats advocated for acceptance. Public opinion was divided. In the end, the economic and technological benefits were too significant to ignore. President Ward made the final decision. Earth would accept the terms. On June 15, 2157, humanity officially joined the Galactic Council. The signing ceremony was broadcast across Earth and to all human colonies in the solar system. The Weapons Limitation Treaty went into effect immediately. All firearms in space were to be collected and returned to Earth within 6 months. The mood at Innovative Defense Solutions on Mars was somber as employees watched the broadcast. The company had specialized in developing firearms for space use, weapons that would work in zero gravity, vacuum, and extreme temperatures. Now their entire product line was effectively outlawed. Dr. Alan Wright, the company's lead engineer, studied the faces of his team as they watched the ceremony. Many looked worried about their jobs. Some seemed angry. A few appeared lost. When the broadcast ended, he stood up. "I know what you're all thinking," he said, his voice calm and steady. "That we're finished. That 6 years of work just went down the drain." Nobody disagreed. "But I see this differently," he continued. "The treaty bans firearms. It bans weapons that use explosive chemical reactions to propel solid projectiles. That's a very specific definition." Susan Baker, one of the senior designers, frowned. "What are you suggesting, Alan?" "I'm suggesting," he said, a slight smile forming, "that they've only banned one way of hurting people. Humanity spent thousands of years fighting wars before we invented guns." He walked to the display board and activated it, pulling up images of ancient weapons: bows, crossbows, swords, spears. "They've banned firearms in space," he said, his eyes bright with challenge. "They never said anything about banning human creativity." The room was silent for a moment. Then Peter Jones, a materials specialist, stood up. "I've been working on a carbon nanotube compound that's stronger than steel but weighs almost nothing. Been trying to make better gun barrels with it, but..." He glanced at the image of a bow on the screen. "It would make one hell of a bowstring." Slowly, other team members began to speak up, offering ideas, suggesting possibilities. Dr. Wright looked around the room, watching as despair transformed into excitement. This was humanity at its best, faced with a limitation and immediately looking for ways around it. The aliens had banned guns, but in doing so, they had sparked something potentially more dangerous: human innovation. That evening, he sent a message to company headquarters on Earth requesting emergency funding for 5 new research projects. The subject line read simply, "Non-firearm defense alternatives for human space presence." Within 24 hours, his request was approved with triple the budget he'd asked for. Apparently, he wasn't the only one who saw opportunity in this ban. "They've taken away our guns," he told his team the next morning. "Let's show them what humans can do without them." 6 months passed quickly. Dr. Alan Wright's team at Innovative Defense Solutions worked day and night, turning their Mars facility into a hub of creative weapon development. The company, once facing possible bankruptcy after the firearms ban, now had more government funding than ever before. Word had spread that they were developing legal alternatives to guns, and suddenly everyone wanted to support them. On this particular morning, Alan walked through the main workshop, observing the various projects taking shape. The large space buzzed with activity, filled with the sounds of machines whirring and people talking excitedly about their work. "Dr. Wright, come look at this," called Carol Davis from her workstation. Carol had spent 15 years in the military before becoming an engineer. She had a deep knowledge of ancient warfare that was now proving extremely valuable. Alan approached her table, where a strange-looking bow sat next to several arrow designs. The bow was made of a dark material that seemed to shimmer under the lights. "I've finished the first prototype," she said, picking up the bow. "Carbon nanotube composite for the body and string. It can store 3 times the energy of ancient compound bows while weighing half as much." She handed it to Alan, who tested its weight and balance. "And it works in zero gravity?" Carol nodded. "The string tension adjusts automatically to environmental conditions, but the real magic is in the arrows." She picked up what looked like a simple metal shaft. "Compressed gas tip. On impact, it expands and delivers a shock wave through the target. Non-lethal, but very effective at disabling an opponent. And this one?" Alan pointed to another arrow with a strange, bulbous tip. "That's for ship defense. The tip contains a small EMP generator. It won't penetrate a hull, but stick it on the outside of an enemy vessel, and their systems will go haywire. Alan smiled. Carol's project was just one of many promising developments. Excellent work. Keep refining the design. He moved on to Eric Johnson's station. Eric was hunched over a workbench, fine-tuning what looked like a bulky glove. "How's the mag launcher coming along?" Alan asked. Eric looked up, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he'd been working through the night. "Almost there. The power supply is still an issue, but the concept works." He put on the glove, which covered his hand and forearm. Small lights lit up along its length as it activated. "Watch this," Eric said, picking up a small metal ball bearing. He placed it in his palm, then made a throwing motion. The bearing shot forward at incredible speed, punching a hole through a metal target across the room. "Electromagnetic acceleration," Eric explained. "The glove creates a magnetic field that propels any ferrous object forward at high velocity. No explosive propellant, so it's not technically a firearm." Alan examined the hole in the target. "Power requirements?" "Current battery lasts for about 50 shots before needing a recharge. We're working on improving that." "And accuracy?" "Depends on the user. It follows the natural throwing motion, so someone with good aim will be more accurate. We're developing a targeting system to help with that." Alan nodded, impressed. "Keep at it, this could be a game changer." His next stop was Kyle Bennett's area, where the fluid dynamics expert was testing a strange-looking pistol-shaped device. "Is that what I think it is?" Alan asked. Kyle grinned. "Foam gun, version 3. Improvements from the last test." He aimed. The device had a dummy across the room and pulled the trigger. A small pellet shot out and hit the dummy in the chest. On impact, the pellet exploded into a rapidly expanding foam that quickly hardened, effectively immobilizing the target. "Non-lethal, but very effective for crowd control or capturing hostiles," Kyle explained. "The foam hardens in seconds but can be dissolved with a simple solvent spray if needed." "Range?" Alan asked. "About 50 meters in normal gravity. Less in 0G, but still effective for close quarters." "Good. Very good." Alan continued his tour, checking on other projects. Mary Hunt was developing a modern version of a harpoon launcher for spacewalks. Pete Sandoval was working on gravity slings that could hurl objects with tremendous force using localized gravity distortions. Each project found a clever way around the firearm ban, while still providing effective defense options. As Alan returned to his office, his communication panel lit up with an incoming message. It was from Susan Miller, the head of Colonial Defense. "Alan, we have a situation," Susan said, her face grim on the screen. "Pirates hit the mining outpost on Ceres yesterday. 23 dead, equipment stolen, and the survivors left stranded until a rescue ship could reach them." Alan sat down heavily. "The first major attack since the ban." Susan nodded. "The pirates used energy weapons, perfectly legal under the treaty's definition. Our people had nothing to defend themselves with since we collected all their firearms. What's being done? The Galactic Council sent their deepest regrets and promised to increase patrols, but that doesn't help us now. We need your team's prototypes, ready or not. How soon can you deliver something useful?" Alan thought about the projects he'd just reviewed. None were fully ready for deployment, but some were close enough. "We can have the first batch of advanced bows and the foam guns ready in 2 weeks. The mag launchers might take longer to perfect." 2 weeks may be too late for the next target," Susan said. "Intelligence suggests the same pirate group is planning to hit the research station on Europa. We're evacuating non-essential personnel, but the station is too valuable to abandon entirely." Alan leaned forward. "What if we sent our prototypes with a team of our engineers? They know the equipment better than anyone and could train your security people on site." Susan considered this. Risky, but it might work. How quickly could they deploy? 3 days. I'll lead the team myself. You? Alan, you're not security personnel. No, but I know every prototype we've developed, their strengths and weaknesses. Your people will need that knowledge. Susan was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Approved. I'll arrange transport to Europa. Be ready to leave in 48 hours. After the call ended, Alan sat back in his chair, thinking. This would be the first real test of their new weapons. Theory and testing were one thing, but actual combat was another. Lives would depend on their effectiveness. He opened his communication panel again and called for an emergency meeting of project leads. They had 2 days to prepare their best prototypes for real-world use. It wasn't ideal, but it was the situation they faced. Time to see if human innovation can match alien weaponry, he muttered to himself as he gathered his notes. The real test was about to begin. The journey to Europa took 30 hours in the military transport ship. Dr. Alan Wright spent most of that time making final adjustments to the weapons and training the security team on how to use them. Europa Station was one of humanity's most important research facilities in the outer solar system, studying the vast ocean beneath the moon's icy surface. Over 300 scientists and support staff lived there. They could not be left defenseless. The key is to remember these aren't guns, Alan explained to the group of security officers gathered in the ship's cargo hold. You can't just point and shoot. Each weapon requires different skills. Jack Nelson, the head of Europa Station Security, frowned as he held up one of the magnetic acceleration gloves. My team was trained with firearms. We've got less than a day to learn these new weapons before the pirates might arrive. Alan nodded. That's why we're focusing on the simplest options first. The foam guns work most like your old weapons. Point, aim, fire. The foam expands on impact and hardens almost instantly, he demonstrated by firing at a target on the wall. The small pellet hit and immediately bloomed into a mass of gray material that solidified within seconds. Non-lethal, but very effective for immobilizing attackers, Alan continued. Each gun has 20 shots before needing a reload. Next, he picked up one of Carol's advanced bows. These take more skill, but they're extremely powerful. The carbon nanotube construction gives them incredible force, and we have various specialized arrows for different situations. The security team looked skeptical, but they began training with the new weapons. Some adapted quickly, especially to the foam guns. Others struggled with the more exotic options. Alan watched with growing concern. Would they be ready in time? Europa Station came into view through the transport's windows, a gleaming complex of domes and structures built on the icy surface of Jupiter's moon. Beautiful, but vulnerable. The transport docked at the main airlock, and Alan's team quickly began unloading their equipment. Station Director Samantha Lee met them at the dock. She was a small woman with a commanding presence, her face tight with worry. Dr. Wright, thank you for coming. We received another warning from Ceres. The pirate ship was spotted heading in our direction about 6 hours ago. They could arrive any time within the next day. Alan introduced his team and explained the weapons they had brought. We need to distribute these to your security personnel immediately and continue their training. Of course, Director Lee said. I've had all non-essential staff evacuated to the emergency shelters deeper under the ice, but our main research facilities must be protected. Over the next 8 hours, Alan and his engineers worked with the station's security team, teaching them to use the new weapons effectively. Progress was slower than Alan had hoped, but they were running out of time. Jack Nelson gathered his security team for a final briefing. According to the warning from Ceres, we're dealing with Crexian pirates. They have energy weapons and some basic armor. They'll likely target the main research lab and the supply storage. He pointed to the station. Schematic. We'll set up defensive positions here, here, and here. Remember your training. These new weapons work differently, but they can be effective if used properly. Just as the briefing ended, the station's alarm system blared to life. Unidentified ship approaching. All personnel to emergency stations. The automated voice announced over the speakers. Alan rushed with the security team to the main observation deck. Through the large viewing window, they could see a ship approaching, a dark, angular vessel with odd protrusions that looked like weapons. That's them, Jack said grimly. Matches the description from Ceres. Everyone to your positions. Alan wasn't security personnel, but he grabbed one of the magnetic acceleration gloves. He had designed it. He knew how to use it better than anyone. The pirate ship docked forcibly at an external airlock, the metal groaning as they forced their way in. The station's automatic systems tried to prevent the breach, but the pirates had override technology. They're cutting through airlock 7, reported a security officer through the comm system. 30 seconds until breach. Alan positioned himself behind a sturdy metal cabinet near the main corridor. His heart pounded in his chest. He was an engineer, not a fighter, but these were his weapons being tested for the first time in real combat. The distant sound of metal giving way echoed through the station, followed by the heavy footsteps of the pirates entering. "I count 8 intruders," came Jack's voice over the comm. "Armed with energy pistols moving toward the main lab." Alan watched the corridor, waiting. The plan was to let the pirates get deeper into the station, then catch them in a crossfire. The defense team had positioned themselves strategically throughout the main areas. The first pirate came into view, a Crexian, just as expected. The alien was tall and lean with gray-scaled skin and 4 arms. Each hand held an energy weapon that glowed with an ominous blue light. Behind the first Crexian came 3 more, moving cautiously but confidently. They clearly expected minimal resistance. They were wrong. The signal came through Alan's earpiece, a soft double click from Jack. The defenders opened fire. From her position in the ceiling maintenance shaft, Carol loosed the first arrow. It struck the lead Crexian in the shoulder, the compressed gas tip releasing a powerful shockwave on impact. The alien stumbled and fell, temporarily paralyzed. The other pirates reacted immediately, firing their energy weapons toward the source of the attack. But more arrows came from different directions, along with the distinctive sound of the foam guns discharging. One pirate was hit directly in the chest with foam that expanded rapidly, encasing him from neck to waist in hardened material. Another took an EMP arrow to his energy pistol, causing it to short out in a shower of sparks. Alan waited until one of the pirates ran past his position, then aimed his magnetic glove at a metal pipe section lying on the floor. With a quick gesture, he sent the pipe flying at incredible speed, striking the alien in the back of the head. The Crexian dropped without a sound. The battle moved through the station's corridors, the pirates falling back in confusion as they faced weapons they had never encountered before. Their energy weapons were powerful but had limited effectiveness against defenders who were using the station's structure for cover and attacking from unexpected angles. Within 20 minutes, it was over. 3 pirates were dead, including their leader. The remaining 5 were captured, immobilized by foam or shock arrows. Jack Nelson surveyed the aftermath with amazement. Not a single human casualty, and minimal damage to the station. He turned to Alan. "Your weapons worked better than I expected." Alan examined one of the pirates' energy pistols. "They expected us to be defenseless. The firearms ban was supposed to leave us vulnerable." Director Lee joined them, relief evident on her face. "We need to inform Earth and the Galactic Council about this attack, and about how we defended ourselves." Alan nodded, already thinking about improvements to the weapons based on their performance in actual combat. "The Council may not like that we found a way around their ban, but they can't argue with the results. These weapons comply with the treaty's exact wording." As the security team led away the captured pirates, Alan opened a communication channel to Susan Miller back on Earth. The test had been successful, more successful than he could have hoped. Now it was time to ramp up production and distribute these new weapons to all human settlements in space. The firearms ban hadn't weakened humanity. After all, it had simply pushed them to innovate. News of the successful defense of Europa Station spread quickly throughout human space. The captured pirates were transferred to a Galactic Council security vessel for trial, along with detailed reports of how they had been defeated. Dr. Alan, Wright and his team returned to Mars as heroes. Their weapons had saved lives and protected valuable research. 6 months later, the Mars facility had tripled in size. What had once been a small research division of Innovative Defense Solutions was now its own company, Wright Advanced Defense Systems. Government contracts poured in, and every human outpost and ship wanted the new weapons. Alan stood at the window of his new office, looking out at the busy manufacturing floor. Workers assembled magnetic gloves, advanced bows, and foam guns at a rapid pace. But it was the newer projects that truly excited him. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Carol Davis entered, carrying a tablet with the latest test results. The gravity sling passed all field tests, she reported. Ryan's team has solved the power consumption issues. Alan took the tablet, examining the data. The gravity sling was their most ambitious project yet, a device that created localized distortions in gravitational fields, allowing the user to hurl objects with tremendous force and accuracy over great distances. Any side effects? He asked, remembering earlier problems with the prototype. Nothing significant. The user experiences mild disorientation after extended use, but it fades quickly. Carol smiled. It's ready for production. Excellent. What about Mary's project? Carol's expression grew more serious. The organic weapons are progressing. The seed pods grow as expected and the delivery system works, but there are concerns about using biological components in weapons, even non-lethal ones. Alan nodded. Mary Thompson's bioengineering team was developing weapons that grew their own ammunition, hardened seed pods that could be fired with compressed air systems. The pods contained paralytic toxins that temporarily disabled targets without killing them. The concept was brilliant, but raised ethical questions. Tell Mary to continue development, but focus on medical applications first. The Galactic Council will be more accepting if we present it as a medical delivery system that can be adapted for defense rather than the other way around. Will do, Carol said, making a note on her tablet. Any word from Earth about the Council's reaction to our weapons? Alan asked. That's actually the other reason I came to see you. Ambassador Carter is here. He wants to speak with you. Alan raised his eyebrows in surprise. John Carter had been the human ambassador to the Galactic Council for years now. His visit to Mars was unexpected. Send him in. A few minutes later, John Carter entered Alan's office. The ambassador looked tired, the stress of his position evident in the lines on his face. Dr. Wright, he said, shaking Alan's hand. It's good to finally meet you in person. Your weapons have caused quite a stir in council chambers. Alan gestured for John to take a seat. I hope that's not a problem. We've adhered to the letter of the treaty. None of our weapons use explosive chemical reactions to propel projectiles. John smiled slightly. Yes, that's exactly what I've been explaining to them. They're not happy, but they can't claim we've violated the agreement. He paused. Several council species are now pushing for amendments to the treaty to close what they call the human loophole. And how is that going? Alan asked, pouring coffee for both of them. Slowly. Treaty amendments require unanimous approval, and we have allies now. The Varanti and Nubulan representatives have been blocking the amendments. Alan was surprised. I wouldn't have expected alien support. The successful defense of Europa Station changed some perspectives. Plus, the Varanti have purchased rights to produce their own versions of your foam guns. They find them more elegant than energy weapons. John sipped his coffee. But that's not why I'm here. He placed a data chip on Alan's desk. This contains intelligence about a new threat. The Varaxian Empire is expanding toward human space. Alan frowned. He had heard of the Varaxians, a militaristic species not part of the Galactic Council. How serious is the threat? Very. The Varaxians have already conquered 2 systems at the edge of Council space. They use overwhelming force and have little interest in diplomacy. John's expression was grim. The Council is obligated to defend these regions but lacks the military presence to do so effectively. And they want our help? Alan asked, surprised. Not officially, no. The Council leadership is too proud to ask directly. But several individual members have approached me privately. They're impressed by how quickly humans adapted to the firearms ban. Alan picked up the data chip, turning it over in his fingers. What exactly are they hoping for? Innovation, Dr. Wright, the kind that humans excel at. John leaned forward. The Varaxians use conventional warfare tactics. Large ships, energy weapons, shock troops. Their strategies haven't changed in centuries because they haven't needed to. No one has been able to stand against them. Until now, Alan said, understanding dawning. Exactly. Your team has created weapons that no one expected, approaches to combat that are unfamiliar to species that have been fighting in space for thousands of years. John's eyes were intense. The council won't admit it, but they need human ingenuity. Alan stood and walked back to the window, looking out at his busy factory floor. You're asking us to develop weapons that could be used against the Varaxians. I'm asking you to help protect human settlements that will be in the path of Varaxian expansion. If the council can't stop them, we'll be next. Alan thought for a moment. What had begun as a way to work around the firearms ban had become something much larger. His weapons could determine the future of humanity in space, perhaps even the future of the Galactic Council itself. We'll need more resources, he said finally, and access to alien technology to better understand what we're up against. John smiled. Already arranged. The Council won't officially support this project, but several member species are contributing resources and technical data. Then we have work to do. Alan pocketed the data chip. My team will need to develop entirely new approaches. The Varaxians will have studied our existing weapons after Europa Station. How long will you need? Alan calculated quickly. 6 months for the first prototypes, maybe a year for full deployment. John's face fell. We may not have that long. Intelligence suggests the Varaxians are planning a major offensive within 3 months. Then we'll have to work faster, Alan said, already mentally reorganizing his projects and teams. We'll focus on adapting existing designs first, then develop new ones as we go. As John Carter left the office, Alan called an emergency meeting of his project leads. The stakes had just gotten much higher. They weren't just creating alternatives to firearms anymore. They were developing weapons that might determine the survival of humanity among the stars. And time was running out. 3 months passed in a blur of frantic work. The Wright Advanced Defense Systems facility on Mars operated around the clock, with engineers and scientists working in shifts to develop and build new weapons. Alan barely slept, pushing himself and his team to meet the impossible deadline. Reports from the edge of human space grew more alarming each week. The Varaxian fleet had conquered another system, moving steadily closer to human colonies. The few Galactic Council ships sent to stop them were quickly disabled or destroyed. Conventional weapons and tactics simply weren't effective against the Varaxian war machines. On the day the new defense systems were scheduled to ship out, Alan stood in the facility's massive hangar bay, watching as workers loaded equipment onto transport vessels. 3 ships waited on the launch pads, each modified with new weapon systems developed specifically to counter the Varaxian threat. Carol approached him, data tablet in hand. Final checks are complete. All systems are operational. Alan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. And the crews? Trained as well as possible given the time constraints. They understand the basics, but they'll be learning as they go. This wasn't ideal, but it was the best they could do. The Varaxian fleet was already on the move toward Ceres Station, the largest human settlement in the asteroid belt. With over 5,000 miners and their families, Ceres couldn't be evacuated in time. Dr. Wright, a voice called from behind them. Alan turned to see Frank Harrison, the captain of the lead defense ship. Captain, Alan greeted him. Are your people ready? Frank nodded, his expression serious. As ready as we'll ever be. None of us have faced the Varaxians before, but we've studied the intelligence reports. We know what we're up against. Remember, your ships aren't built for direct confrontation, Alan reminded him. You'll need to use hit-and-run tactics. The Varaxians expect conventional warfare. Don't worry, Doctor. We've been drilling on the new strategy for weeks. Frank managed a smile. Those oversized battleships of theirs won't know what hit them. The defense fleet launched 2 hours later. Alan watched from the control room as the 3 ships rose into the thin Martian atmosphere and then accelerated toward the asteroid belt. The fate of Ceres Station, and perhaps all of human space, rested with those vessels and their innovative weapons. Alan remained in the control room, monitoring communications as the ships made the journey to Ceres. After 18 tense hours, the defense fleet reported that they had arrived and were taking up positions around the station. The Varaxian fleet was expected within hours. Varaxian ships detected at the edge of sensor range, came the report from Captain Harrison. 12 vessels, including one command ship. They're moving in a standard attack formation. Alan leaned closer to the communication screen. Remember your training. Don't engage directly until they're committed to their approach. Understood. Activating stealth systems now. One of the new technologies Alan's team had developed was an advanced stealth system that made ships nearly invisible to standard sensors. The human defense vessels disappeared from conventional scanners, hidden among the asteroids surrounding Ceres Station. The Varaxian fleet approached with confidence, clearly expecting little resistance. Their massive ships moved into position around Ceres, preparing to launch landing craft to seize control of the station. "They're in position," reported Frank, commencing attack run. The first human ship, commanded by Captain Nancy Hill, broke from its hiding place among the asteroids. Instead of conventional weapons, Nancy's ship deployed massive railguns that used electromagnetic acceleration to hurl chunks of mined asteroids at the Varaxian vessels. These projectiles, moving at incredible speeds, slammed into the side of the nearest Varaxian ship, tearing through its hull plating. Before the Varaxians could respond, the second human ship, under Commander Greg Martinez, launched swarms of miniature drones. Each drone was equipped with plasma cutters originally designed for mining operations, but repurposed to slice through enemy hull plating. Hundreds of these drones attached themselves to two Varaxian ships, cutting through vital systems and weapon emplacements. The third human ship, commanded by Frank himself, moved in quickly to target the Varaxian command vessel. This ship carried the most experimental weapon of all, a gravity disruptor that created localized distortions in spacetime. The weapon fired, and a sphere of warped gravity formed around the Varaxian command ship. The massive vessel groaned, as gravitational forces pulled it in different directions, tearing at its structure. The Varaxians, caught completely by surprise, struggled to respond. Their weapons were designed to counter conventional attacks, energy beams, missiles, and other standard space warfare tactics. The human innovations left them confused and disorganized. "Their fleet is breaking formation," reported Nancy. 2 ships severely damaged, 3 more taking heavy damage from the drones. The battle continued for nearly an hour. The human ships darted between asteroids, using the terrain to their advantage, striking quickly and then retreating before the Varaxians could lock their weapons. The railguns continued to hurl asteroids at devastating speeds. The drones swarmed like insects, cutting through hull plating and disabling weapon systems. Finally, the Varaxian command ship signaled retreat. The remaining vessels, many heavily damaged, began to pull back from Ceres Station. "They're retreating," Frank reported, his voice filled with disbelief and excitement. "I repeat, the Varaxian fleet is retreating." In the control room on Mars, Alan and his team erupted into cheers. What had seemed impossible just months ago had become reality. Human innovation had defeated the most feared military force in the sector. In the days that followed, news of the victory spread throughout human space and to the Galactic Council. Ambassador John Carter was summoned to an emergency council session. "The council wishes to express its gratitude for humanity's defense of Ceres Station," the council leader announced formally. "The Varaxian threat has been temporarily halted, giving us time to prepare a more coordinated response." John nodded politely, but he knew what was really happening. The council had been forced to recognize that their attempt to limit human weapons had backfired spectacularly. By banning firearms, they had pushed humans to develop even more effective technologies. In recognition of humanity's contributions to galactic security, the council leader continued, "We invite Earth to take a permanent seat on the council's security committee." This was unprecedented. Earth had been a council member for less than 2 years. Such a position usually took decades to achieve. Back on Mars, Alan received the news with a mixture of pride and amusement. He sat in his office watching a recording of the council session that John had sent him. Carol entered with a data tablet. More orders, she said. The Varanti and 3 other council species want our railgun and drone technology. Alan smiled. And to think none of this would have happened if they hadn't banned our firearms. Limitations breed innovation, Carol replied. That's the thing about humans. Tell us we can't do something one way, and we'll find 10 other ways to do it better. Alan looked out at his busy factory floor, where workers were already building improved versions of the weapons that had defeated the Varaxians. The firearms ban had been meant to weaken humanity, to keep the newcomers to galactic society in check. Instead, it had pushed humans to heights of innovation that had saved not just human colonies, but potentially the entire Galactic Council. Let's get back to work, he said, standing up. I have a feeling this is just the beginning.